was thinking about the Titanic.
Okay. You're thinking about the Titanic.
Again, like, imagine if you started a radio show all about the Titanic and the fucking boat comes back out of the water. You know what I mean? Like,
okay, hold on. I don't. No. We don't get to backtrack from what we said. Because it's not like we even said BioWare was dying.
No.
And, like, I think it also needs to be said that this would have happened. Like, this is still technically a Dara and Hudson trailer. You know, like, they haven't had time to the new people in charge to do anything.
To the point that I actually made on the last episode, this is exactly what I said was going to happen. I said the energy is going to go through the roof, in this case for reasons that we didn't even anticipate. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, the reality is still the same, but the energy went through the... So I guess it's really more about BioWare is not the Titanic in this situation. The fandom's mood is the Titanic.
Okay. I can buy that. Yeah, I'll get behind that.
And the fucking boat just resurrected itself.
Well, now you have to do the old-timey voice reacting to watching the Titanic come out of the ocean with this skeleton crew, like literal skeletons of crew.
Oh, the humanity! The first edition of Voyages of the Titanic is also the last. What? It came out? Who the fuck is James Cameron? What do you mean it came out of the water? How did that even happen? This is impossible, unprecedented, unbelievable.
What even is a movie? Okay. Well, we got a lot to talk about today, so let's just get the ball running. I think you wanted to touch upon Cyberpunk, correct?
Yeah. Besides the type, we'll go from the early 20th century to the late 21st century. Cyberpunk 2077 just came out. There's a ton that has already been said about Cyberpunk 2077. I've just started playing it. I'm maybe really only a few hours into it because I restarted 3 times.
Okay.
But I will say this, and I kind of tweeted about this a little bit. I think that the analysis on this game is going to take a very long time. And I actually think that the game is sort of hard to talk about in the way that I would like to talk about it, which is like accurately and comprehensively in a way that's going to seem evergreen. Because I think there's certain games when they come out, they're talked about very poorly, and then they age very well, and they have not just online games that have a resurgence, but even like some single player games that just, they do really, really well in hindsight. And then there's other games that are talked about incredibly well when they come out, but when you actually play them a few years later, you're like, I don't really think there's anything that special about this. Mm-hmm. Cyberpunk to me is a tricky one. I think that the design of the game is actually going to take a long time to digest. I made a brief example in tweets about how, like, I've beaten Red Dead Redemption 2 3 times now, and I don't think it was until at least 2 playthroughs that I really understood how special the game was, because that feeling of sort of like your feet not being able to touch the bottom, like, it's obviously all just a simulation, but the way that the simulation runs, like, there's so many different threads that intersect, it gives that verisimilitude, or it tricks you into feeling like a quote-unquote real world. Mm-hmm. Red Dead 2 is probably the best game ever in that respect. It's very hard to kind of see where the canned simulation sort of starts and ends with the feeling of a realistic simulation. And then other games, like I used Deus Ex Mankind Divided, you know, great story, great feeling of immersion the first time through. The environments in the cities, like your Mankind Divided is set in Prague, at least initially, and Prague really feels like a quote-unquote real city, like the first time you explore it. And then you realize it's kind of more like 4 hallways and a few nooks and crannies painted as the city of Prague. Uh-huh. So those are like both good games, but those are 2 different ends of the spectrum. And at times, I feel like Cyberpunk 2077 is the best illusion ever of depth and size. Uh-huh. Kind of like the way Mankind Divided is. And at other times, I'm like, no, this really is the simulation that's so broad, it sort of mimics reality, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we're going to know until we spend a lot more time with the game. That being said, late last night, I did go through one of the sort of probably the first major set piece mission other than the opening itself. Mm-hmm. And holy God, that was jaw dropping. That is one of the best fucking quests / missions that I've ever played in a game. It's astonishingly good.
Wow.
It's a buddy of mine who's playing it also said, is it like the big he calls it the Heat heist in Grand Theft Auto 5 because it's reminiscent of the movie Heat. It's a big heist mission in GTA 5, and I go, yeah, you're on the right track. Like, it's sort of it's that level of, like, the storyline is really good. It has all of these sort of blockbustery moments that you would expect, but it's also got a lot of moments of, like, personal conversations with the different players involved in this job and sort of like their motivations and why they're doing what they're doing, and lots of choices, and you can double cross 2 or 3 different people and double cross the double crossers, and, you know, depending on your backstory, you have different options available to you. It's a ton of branching storylines capped off by, like, an incredible what the fuck plot twist, followed by, like, 2 or 3 more incredible set piece, like, action sequences, followed by another what the fuck plot twist.
Now, that's also the first mission. Sometimes these games, they have, like, a really cool first mission, couple missions, and then, like, kind of near the end of the game, so if you, like, keep that up the entire time, that'd be interesting.
I agree.
But
yeah,
so to be continued, I guess.
yeah. It's right now, I'd say it's way too early to say, oh, this is overrated, or it's definitely, you know, the best thing ever. I think we need more time with it, but it's got my attention fully at this point. That being said, I know we said this might be sort of a long episode. We're going to get to the title of the show very soon. Dragon Age, Mass Effect, obviously, that's huge. But the Game Awards did happen. That's the thing that also kind of happened. Did you want to say anything about the Game Awards?
Well, okay, so here's the thing. Now that I have a small child, I pretty much just watch. So I have a Discord, and we played like VGA cringe bingo. So I pretty much only watched until someone got bingo, and then I was out, which was probably about an hour and a half into the show.
Not a bad move.
Yeah, I will say, kind of spoilers, if you haven't watched the VGA, I have no idea what's going on. I did put down Mass Effect fans get thrown a bone into the bingo card, so go me at predicting that.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, the only thing that I feel like I have a bone to pick, well, actually 2. One is Jeff Knightley, or Geoff. I always don't know how to say his name.
Jeff Keighley?
Yeah, that's it. Why did I say Knightley? Whatever.
Close enough.
Keira Knightley was just really, it seemed really snarky the entire time. Like, after a trailer, there was a couple trailers after it was shown, it was like, all right, great. Anyway, here's the next one. It sounded like he didn't want to be there, and this is his fucking show.
Yeah.
So that was kind of strange. That's all I have to say on that. And the other one is Animal Crossing should have been Game of the Year. Actually, there's a lot of things that were nominated for Game of the Year that I would have been upset about. I think The Last of Us, like, I didn't play it. I haven't played the first one. I don't really give a shit. This is just fun. But so many people came out saying they didn't like it. Not even about, like, any controversy or anything. Just, like, it just didn't live up to what it was. And there's, like, a bunch of other games in that list, like Ghost of Tsushima. Like, everyone loved that. If anything, that one I would have been happy. But I really do think Animal Crossing was Game of the Year. Like, there was no other game this year that was so in the public eye, and I feel like that needed some recognition. And it won, like, best family game or something like that. Okay,
they threw it a bone. Like, here, you could have this one.
Yeah, like, hey, whatever. And I know I'm biased because I've been playing Animal Crossing since launch pretty much every day. I think the only day I didn't play was when I was giving birth. So, like, it's been something close to that. So, yeah, I just think it's stupid. Anyway,
I think your point is very well taken, and I just want to say I kind of, like, low key agree with you. I don't have strong opinions about Game of the Year ever, because to me it's not. I'm a film buff, and amongst my film buff friends, we always say, like, to me, the best movie never wins Best Picture at the Oscars. The Oscars is, like, a specific thing. It's, like, political, and I don't even mean real politics. I mean Hollywood politics. It's just like it's like an in club. It's like a country club sort of a thing. It's like it's never really the best movie, so who cares? That being said, like, I feel like you kind of should give it to the game that's. Animal Crossing was like the video game zeitgeist of quarantine in 2020 year.
Yeah.
Like, it just captured the mood, it captured the moment, and it was kind of uplifting for a good while there, and probably still is. So I think it should have gotten it too.
Yeah. Like, I had a high school friend I hadn't talked to in 5 years text me about the game. You know? What the hell? She doesn't even like video games, but she bought a Switch and Animal Crossing, was asking me hot tips. I'm like, who even are you anymore?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things that took over everywhere. I don't use Facebook, but like kind of like my girlfriend's Facebook, which is filled with predominantly people who don't really know anything about video games, and like the whole ecosystem was taken over by memes and images and videos and people who are actually playing Animal Crossing. And for people who are really not gamers, it was incredible.
Yeah, so I think it should have won. I honestly, even like Among Us recently has been so huge that if that won, I've been like, yeah, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, and it did. Like, did it get anything? No, I actually think it did get something. I forgot what it was. It best multiplayer? Is that it?
I actually don't know anything about what happened at the Game Awards other than what we're going to talk about.
That's fair. Yeah, because you didn't watch it, right?
I did not. I saw kind of the end part because Mass Effect was at the very end, and so as I was trying to scroll through after it was live, I'm like, oh well, I might as well just see whatever this is, and I'm like,
I missed Mass Effect Live because I had long since gone by that time. Michael, I had like left to do stuff with the baby, and Michael, I left it on in the living room, and Michael was on the phone, and suddenly I just see his head poke around the corner, and like him pointing, like, there was a thing you might want to
tell that Exalted March guy about this.
Yeah, you might want to do something about that. So that was anyway. But let's Dragon Age. There was a Dragon Age trailer. We've been rambling on too long. Let's fucking talk about this.
Let's do it. Dragon Age, Mass Effect, both had trailers. We knew Dragon Age was coming. We did not know Mass Effect was coming. Huge surprise. But yeah, let's start with Dragon Age.
Yeah. So first off, I'm assuming you've seen it. How are you feeling?
It's good.
About it.
It's good. I liked it. I tweeted out acceptable. And I had a little GIF of what's his face from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I think it is.
Oh,
sort of nodding, going, that's good. I'm not losing my shit over it the way that other people are, and I don't say that like with 1 ounce of saying that people should not be excited or that people should not lose their shit. This is just exactly what I imagined, kind of. I mean, not like the actual images, but I think I said on the last episode as well, like, expect between 30 to 90 seconds of CGI that's going to show characters' locations and some concepts. That's like exactly what we got. So I didn't really expect less than this, to be honest.
I did expect a title. Or unless Dragon Age, just plain Dragon Age is the title, which I kind of want to say it's not. But I think there's a whole case about the name. At least
the name of it is not "Will Continue," so at least you have that going for you.
It got that, yeah. The MEWC is coming soon. But yeah, so if you haven't seen it, just to sum it up, or you're watching in the future and don't know what trailer we're talking about, so it does. It starts off with Varric talking, and he says like a little bit, and then it's just. What's the different scenes? Like you see a little bit of a Grey Warden. Well, actually, first there's like shots of the mural. We're gonna get to the mural last because that's like the interesting part in my opinion. But you have shots of a Grey Warden fighting off these turtle things. I don't know what it is other than angry turtles.
Giant
to be quite
turtles.
honest. Yeah, basically. And then there's like you see, it's like a beautiful city and like a crow standing over it. I think it's Antiva City, to be quite honest. I got nothing to say. We've kind of seen concepts of these areas before. Then we see, I think the big one of the area that we haven't really seen before is Tevinter, or Minrathous specifically. And you have like magical neon lights and this floating semicircle ring that looks really cool. And you see Tevinter banners, so at least you know where it is. And then it jumps to, this is the same area that like had the tree that was corrupted and like the Andraste statues. That's like snowy. We've seen that before in previous trailers that have come out. And there's like a hunter. I want to say it's a lady. Some people have said this is the Canary we see in the trailer or the concept art. I'm not quite sure. There's like something off about the horn things. I don't really know what it is. Then she shoots like a magic arrow at a monster we've seen before in concept art, and then Solas in the mural. And then Dragon Age. That's it. So yeah, I want to talk about the mural and maybe like Solas's face, but I think everything else we have seen concepts art before, and I think that's why a lot of people aren't so excited about this. Is that we've kind of seen this before. But like that's not necessarily a bad thing though, because I think like we saw like the prep work, and this is like the end result, you know?
Right. That's true.
So I'm not disappointed by it at all. But I know some people are. But yeah, I know. I feel like if you're disappointed by this, you might have just been like following along the entire time. So maybe you expected something kind of new, where this kind of isn't that new. It's like full of things that we've kind of already seen before. It's like maybe a couple things thrown in, like Minrathous and the Weird Hunter. But
Yeah, so I mean, I guess for you personally, does this excite you? Do you consider this, knowing that something was coming? I've said that I think Mass Effect's had a huge advantage in that everything seems like gravy. It's a surprise. But knowing that something was coming and this is what we got, does it excite you? And do you consider is this a win for you as a Dragon Age fan?
I would say the first, hold on, when does this bad boy pop up? The first 56 seconds is whatever, and then like the last 10 seconds of that full mural is what I'm here for, you know?
Okay, all right.
If it wasn't for the mural says so much more than anything else in the trailer could, and I feel like people that like aren't into the deep lore like I am and like some other people are, it's just not that exciting to them. And like if you don't give a shit about this mural, I can see how it's disappointing, but this mural says so much about a lot of things that like the deep lore community has been like speculating about, that we all kind of lost our shits a little bit. So I feel like that's what's people are excited about right now. Like there are things to be excited about in like the renders, but like this mural, again, this is like what the second time this has happened. This is what everyone's here for. And this is obviously what I have the most to say about. So yeah, overall though, I would say like if we're grading it, my feelings, I'd probably be at like a B+. Like I was like, ooh, this is really neat, but I'm not like, I'm not losing my shit. Here's the thing though, it would be very hard to beat the 2018 Game Awards, where like we didn't expect jack shit. We thought we were gonna be in the trenches for another 40 years or whatever, and suddenly there's the Dreadwolf Rises trailer.
Yeah.
You know? And then it immediately shows an item that we all thought was out of the picture, and like no one gave a shit anymore.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's not only very important, but it seems to be like the whole key to everything. And then like a comic series that was running at the same time also happened to mention it like a couple days right after. And like there's none of that right now. So like I feel like even though this is a good trailer technically, it just, that first one just had so much going for it that that excitement can't be topped. So I get why people feel like they wanted that happen again, but there was no way because we knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I feel like if they didn't announce it, people would have been more excited, to be quite honest.
Interesting. Okay. So from the community, you said that some people, you kind of felt maybe they weren't as excited. I mean, obviously some people are, right? Like some people are very hyped, but you got to feel that maybe some weren't. Maybe it's just kind of the lens that I have. I probably am not quite as connected into all of the folks that in the community. I thought it was almost what I saw on my Twitter feed was like universal hype.
Well, here's the thing. I actually got a couple of messages of saying like, "Oh, were you expecting more?" Blah 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 blah. So I think that's where I'm coming from. And then like I feel like I see more people going like, "Oh, neat," rather than "Ah!"
More in the line of my acceptable tweet.
Yeah, actually. So not that people are thinking it's really bad necessarily. They just kind of like, oh, I was kind of hoping for a title or, I don't know, a release date for some people. And I'm like, where on earth did you think a release date was coming out of this bitch? Like that?
Yeah. No.
Which maybe that also is to speak of people hyping it up too much in their heads. Because like EA and the devs are like, oh, we're going to show something. So they were expecting like something kind of big, which I think this is kind of big, but like, people are expecting like a title and then like gameplay and whatever. I'm like, okay, this isn't. people were just made shit up in their heads and they disappointed them.
Right. No, I think it's interesting for me, right? And I know you want to get to the mural on it. That's definitely what we're going to do. But I do just want to say kind of, how do I put this? I said acceptable, and it's probably mainly because I think this is exactly what I expected. So I knew something was coming. It was no surprise, and it was about everything I thought it would be as far as the form of it, the shape of it, the length of it, the blocks that were sort of put in there. Some things did surprise me, and I actually feel like I'm not into the deep lore. I leave that to you, and I'm sort of fascinated by hearing about it, but it's not anything that I'm going to go sleuth around and try and come up with theories or anything. And I feel like in a weird way, and I could end up being totally fucking wrong about all this, I feel like I got a way better understanding of what this game's going to be from this short
Well,
trailer.
tell me what you think it is.
I think it's going to have a tone that's a lot lighter than I expected. I think that the color palette and what I'm going to call the art style surprised me. It varies from shot to shot, but when we're getting that on the ground shot in between the boots or the greaves of what I'm almost certain is Grey Warden, and I guess the turtles, like, that does not look like a realistic art style to me. Like, in some shots it does look like a realistic art style. That shot to me looks highly stylized. And I don't know if that's just my eyes being weird, but I'm like, oh, that's borderline cartoony to me. Which is not bad, but also when I look at the one concept, I understand it's probably just concept art, it's whatever, but it's the one that Christian Daly tweeted out with the 3 characters on it and the Dragon Age, what looks like the new logo, basically.
Where it's like, I almost want to call that one like the Sunday morning cartoon.
Yeah, and there's something about that font and the way that that is kind of like, oh, did it perk up on font? That's fantastic.
It did, yeah.
Something the Mike agrees with me about the font. The font is very important.
There's just something about it. Yeah. No, they definitely changed the logo, the font logo.
Something about that's kind of a weird feel. Something about the bow being drawn back and that character. That's a very magic-y bow, and like the effects of that are very big. I don't want to say the F word, Fortnite and these sorts of games that are very.
There are so many F words you could have said, and I have no idea where the fuck you were going with that.
There's so many sort of like cartoony sorts of games that sort of have that vibe to them, where the art style maybe ages a little bit better because it's not super realistic. They've done that with Star Wars: The Old Republic. They chose that art style for that reason. Something about the way that they chose to characterize the protagonist, even though there had already been information about Dragon Age 4 being a person who doesn't have power, that was already sort of out there, that the protagonist was not going to be like the Inquisitor. They really went out of their way with Varric's lines of dialogue about how, like, there's no magic hand, and like, oh, okay, so the Inquisitor, and all this other stuff. Like, they really wanted to drive home the point that, like, you're not this important person in this world. Which to me is very interesting for a couple of different reasons. I guess I'll just spit that out now. To me, those indications are sort of like what I'm taking at Maz, which is way too much extrapolation. I'll just make my excuses up front. Way too much I'm reading into this. Like, that to me is like, this is going to be fucking multiplayer. Like, they're pretty much telling you right away, like, you're not a hero. It's like, oh, gee, what are you saying? Someone like the concept of the freelancers in Anthem, right? It's a bunch of us. You're one of many. You're not the hero. You're not the central person. You're important, but you're one of many. I think that in BioWare games, they've always had that important concept of you are a Spectre or a Grey Warden or the Inquisitor or what have you. In Dragon Age 2, they play with that a little bit. Because you start off without a lot of status, but the game is sort of about obtaining status within Kirkwall. I think it's interesting if from a fictional standpoint they want to play around with the idea of a protagonist that doesn't have a lot of power, but it does paint them into a corner from a certain perspective, because they've said openly, like, part of the reason for why we do that is it just allows us to do more things from a story standpoint. You're allowed into places because you're a Spectre. You should be investigating and meddling in sort of everything that's going on and helping people because you're this person of importance. If they take that away, the other angle to go to for why you're going on all these quests is that you're like a freelancer type person. You're like one of many who might be going around doing jobs. That doesn't mean it has to be multiplayer, but it's one more venue. It's one more sort of like layer that could mesh with that. And then also, to the point of the art style, I feel like once again, when I look at what they did with Star Wars: The Old Republic, like they chose an art style that would age well if they intended to have support for an online component for a long time.
Okay. I don't necessarily agree with your reasoning, but I disagree with the conclusion, if that makes sense.
Wait, so you disagree across the board? You're saying you don't agree with the reasoning and you disagree with the conclusion?
No, I do. I understand your reasoning,
gotcha.
But I don't agree that it means multiplayer. So I guess where I'm coming from is one of the things that Varric says in the trailer is like, you've got us, you've got me, or something like that. And in the story that I don't even know if you read, it was Tevinter Nights, Half Up Front, that's the name of it. There's like this whole little adventure that these two women go on, and at the very end, I'm trying not to say the whole story just because it doesn't really matter. At the end, essentially, this guy that just caught them red-handed in this event, trust me, it makes sense, essentially says, okay, you just double-crossed the Dreadwolf accidentally, and Minrathous is probably angry at you. You don't really have anywhere to go, but I know someone who can help you out, and he's this dwarf fellow in the Free Marches, so Varric. Do you want to go work for Varric, essentially? And they say, sure, we'll take the job. So and then also in the comics, Varric, he's kind of almost asking or acting like a middleman for the Inquisition and gathering people up, sort of. So I think that this could still be what you're talking about, but I feel like it's just that Varric is recruiting random people across the board because he has so many connections across Thedas, and then pushing them into this job to help the Inquisitor. So I kind of feel like that's where they're coming from, that you're some nobody that Varric recruited and threw it out there. Does that mean it's not necessarily multiplayer? Not really, but I feel like hearing them, they've been talking a while. They wanted like a hero that nobody really knows, that kind of thing. And they keep saying it over and over and over again. And so like I just hearing them talk this whole time, I never really got that sense for it. But again, I could be wrong. It could also be like that wasn't the intention at the time they said that, and then something has changed and now it is.
Yeah.
Who knows? So that didn't immediately set up the multiplayer alarms, but we'll see. Yeah, I don't know. On the art style, I feel like this is something that Dragon Age has been going into, though, because Origins was kind of the brown, and like despite how quite bluntly kind of ugly it looked, it did try to be more realistic. And then starting in kind of Dragon Age 2, things just went into the cartoony realm. It was still kind of brown, but had those bright colors, and the weapons were impossible. And like, at the very end, you're fighting, statues that move. It was kind of
yes.
silly. And then in Inquisition, it was very bright with all those greens, and it was colorful. And you had like giant cheese wheel for shields, like, and like this just seems like to bring up the saturation a little bit more. So I feel like it's kind of been working its way up there. Which, that actually brings me to a point I wanted to talk about, is Solas's face. So we all keep making fun of Solas's face.
Yes.
Because
he got some work done.
I want to say it's not a bad model. We all think of Solas as this little lithe little man who's like really nerdy. And the face that shows in the trailer, he's almost like kind of buff and like ripped a little bit because his neck's a lot thicker and his nose is wider. And that's like one of the main differences. And I want to say that I can't say anything about the nose. It just is what it is. That might be a lighting issue. I don't know. But I think the neck is thicker because in Inquisition, to make the elf model, they took the human model and just narrowed it pretty much. Mm-hmm. And it kind of looked funky. Like there's a couple of scenes, like particularly if you punch Solas, his neck looks something's wrong with it.
Yeah.
And because it's too long and like narrow, and it just looks kind of strange, which for an elf in a fantasy game, you don't really notice or whatever. But I think they try to fix that by making it more realistic. And by doing that, they made his neck thicker and made him look more buff. So I think they try to go more realistic proportions and ended up creating Swolless. And that's the joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I think happened there. I'm not mad at it. It's just it's different. Which it could even change, because if you remember, Morrigan in one of the very first Dragon Age Inquisition trailers looked absolutely nothing like she looked in the actual game. And the Morrigan that was in the Inquisition trailer, kind of creepy looking, and then she's absolutely gorgeous in the the Inquisition game.
Yeah. Well, welcome to being a fan of a popular character, because this is the Geralt treatment, right? I mean, Geralt just got more and more handsome with each game. And the same thing is true of Varric to a certain extent between 2 and 3, whereas Varric looks pretty odd looking in 2. He's pretty dashing in Inquisition. And people don't seem to bring, and I think it's fine. I think it's an aesthetically pleasing choice. Maybe it takes away from his color slightly, that he's more of a dashing character. But yeah, I noticed it as well, and I just kind of go I'm not surprised by it. I'm of course they're going to do it. If this is a character that maybe even goes on the cover or something like that, they're going to make him. They gotta make a marketing pass on old Solas.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to say this is a bad render or anything, but I do kind of miss the big bad is some skinny little fuck, there's just something about the nerd you shove in the locker is the guy about to destroy the world that kind of made me laugh.
He's the master of all eggs. He's not supposed to be bald, swole guy. There's a difference between nerdy bald versus jacked bald, and there's a lot of personality difference between those two archetypes.
Yeah. But anyway, so I guess on to the mural.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about that mural. So first off, the mural you see in the trailer is kind you see the major points about it, but it is kind of hard to make out. And I actually tweeted at who I thought was the artist, but actually it wasn't the artist, Dick Thornborough. He said that it was actually, I think he said he did the initial sketch, then Matt Rhodes did the finished piece. If they could release the full image, and they said, we're going to hold on to it a little bit longer. So I thought that was interesting. But they did make the image, the raw image of it, the background for the Dragon Age website. So we have that to go on, and that's what I'm going off of. It does kind of cut off a part of the bottom. So if this is in the future and the full thing is released and there's more shit on the border for some reason, I can't see it. So we're just going off of here. So I think the first thing I want to talk about is there's 2 figures at the bottom. One is obviously Meredith, and then the other one, some people are saying it's Morrigan, and I don't mean to be rude. What the hell is wrong with you guys? It's so obviously Corypheus. Why are you seeing Morrigan? Guys, what's wrong? So I actually saw someone who said some very good fan art of it being Morrigan too, and I was like, oh, that's a really good fan art, but it's so Corypheus. It's
Coryphigan. It's Moripheus.
Moripheus. That sounds like a character off of The Matrix.
It does.
I'm Moripheus. My Morpheus' daughter, Morpheus. Okay, so those are 2 there. And then I'm going to get to the other figures in a minute. So then you have the Dread Wolf right in the middle. Blue. He has 6 blue eyes. There's something about the blue eyes on his forehead that I want to say means something. I honestly have no idea what it is. The best explanation I've gotten, or even theory that I kind of like, is that each eye represents a blight. So you have 6 blights. There's one where the eye's a little bit different. It has a pupil in the center, and maybe that's the soul that got saved, which would be Kieran if that was your world state. And then there's another one with 2 circles in it. So some were thinking is there going to be a dual blight, and that's what that one represents. That's huge what ifs, and also not applicable in all world states. So I don't know if that's necessarily true or not. It might mean absolutely nothing. I mean, I'm just talking out of my ass. So then you have the wolf, almost chomping into this city. Now, a lot of people are saying, it's Minrathous, it's whatever. This is the Golden City, or the Black City, whatever you want to call it. This is literally an image of the Dread Wolf or Solas breaking in to the Golden or Black City. And it looks like the Black City is tainted with red lyrium. And that's what the 2 arches are on the other side. And that's why there's an explosion, because he's chomping into it. In the image from the website, you actually can't see the bottom of it, but in the trailer you can, and it looks like it's kind of floating a little bit. It's really dark, so it's kind of hard to tell. So it's not Minrathous. If the Golden City and Black City is Arlathan, then I guess it is Arlathan. But this is what's in the center of the Fade. So whatever this means, I think it's maybe that's his goal, is getting into the Black Gold City, and I don't know why. We don't really know why he wanted to do that. And why is it tainted with red lyrium? But we know at least that's something he's trying to aim to do, apparently, because that's what's in the mural. So, any questions on that?
No, it's fascinating at this point. I don't think I've got it up now in front of me, both the trailer and the image from the website. I don't think I've looked at it this closely at all. Again, when I saw that towards the end of the trailer, I go, yeah, Caitie will dissect that for us. Somebody, the fandom will get on the Discord, and people started doing it like literally immediately. This is the first time I've looked at it this closely. It's like the fact that like the eyes and everything, and that's fascinating that you guys have deciphered this much.
Mm-hmm. The two figures on the side, to verbalize this, because I know a lot of you haven't maybe even seen it or seen it well. There are these two upside down black and gold figures. We have been calling them Moonhead and Beetle based on their horns.
Moonhead and Beetle?
Yeah, it's not great names, but it's just it was what happened on the Discord. So I'm going to describe what we're calling Beetle first. People are saying that Beetle looks a lot like a canary, and he does. It looks like kind of broad shoulders, smaller eyes than the other figure that looks more feminine. And it has like horns like it would a canary. And also pointed ears, so maybe it's an elf or a canary. I don't know. We have seen some imagery of this before, and that kind of it gets more interesting when we get to Moonhead. But for Beetle, if you go into the Ghildirthalen, there is a couple of alluvians with like these strange like little symbol things on top of them. There is one with like that looks like a sun, and that same sun head is used later on, and it looks almost like a very, very stylized body of a dragon. And there's another one with Moonhead that has that same kind of figurine. But another alluvian is horns that kind of sort of look like Beetle's. Beetle's horns go in where the one in the alluvian kind of goes out, like a U shape almost. This one almost looks like an O. And then another place we've seen these horns is actually in a piece of sort of cut images that we found in the files, specifically Calwin found in the files of Inquisition. It was apparently something that was supposed to be shown in the Elven Ruins in Trespasser, but they got cut for whatever reason. And if you think of the mosaics in the Elven Ruins in Trespasser, they usually show like a wolf and then like some sort of scene that goes along. But in the found files, we found different heads that would replace the wolf, and one of them, again, is that U-shaped horns. There was also one that looked a lot like the head of the statue from Dragon Age Origins that was supposed to be Falondin. It was like this weird tentacle monster. We'll also get to that in a bit. There was one that looked like the sun, and then horns, or Beetle. Other than that, I have nothing to say on Beetle. His shoulders kind of remind me of a pride demon, but even that's like a stretch. He's kind of the mystery, and we don't really know what to do with him or who he is. So, moving on to Moonhead, which is the interesting one. Jordan, we actually have talked about Moonhead before on this podcast.
Yeah, it's the big image that they showed, the big tentacle monster thing that was added to the book. That was added to the book that was changed from the original BTS video, right?
Yes, correct. The original BTS video had it would just look like a slug, and then for some reason in the updated BioWare 25 book, she had the whole Moonhead thing going on. And if you compare the two images, they are like identical. Yeah. It is the same, whatever it is. The only difference is that they have this wavy lines coming off of her head. And other than that, I don't know. I don't really know what it is. I will say that the wavy lines. This is way out there. We have seen similar wavy lines in one of the murals in the not the Ghildirthalen. No, it is the Ghildirthalen in Trespasser, and there's these two orbs. One is blue, one is gold, and it has horizontal and vertical wavy stripes, and it has the same amount and kind of waviness to it. I don't know if it's the same thing, nor do I know what it meant in the original mural versus here, but she seems to be draped in it. I don't know if it's supposed to be magic or hair, because like the image from the Bioware 25 book doesn't have anything kind of like this. So I don't really know what it means. But this kind of shape on the head is, again, also used on like these weird golden statues that's throughout the Trespasser DLC. I think she has... There's the weird dragon one that's in the underground of like the Mythal Lyrium Processing Center. And I think there might be another one on Alluvian. That one I might be wrong about. I can't quite remember. But yeah, I guess what surprises me more about Moonhead is that they released a piece of concept art with her images in it, you know? In the BioWare book. I'm really surprised that they did that. And like it seems to be as important as it is based off of this mural.
I don't disagree. I think there was something, like we said, kind of unique about that. And remember, we had a theory, too, that perhaps the BTS video was the updated version. Because remember, we had the theory that said, you know, the publishing of a book has more lead time. And so perhaps this is the old version, the BTS version is the new version. With Moonhead, got to make sure I have the terminology right, with Moonhead making a reappearance in this trailer... Perhaps we scrub that. I would say we scrub that theory of saying that Moonhead was the old version, which then really begs the question of why was it taken out in the BTS? Why was it changed in the BTS video? And perhaps it was because there was a little bit of vacillation of like maybe we should hide this.
I don't know. I really don't know. Because it is really interesting. So I previously mentioned that we wanted to get back, or I wanted to get back to the Falandin statue in Origins. So I want to bring that back real quick. Jordan, do you know what statue I'm talking about?
No, not at all. It's a statue of Falandin, apparently.
Did you play the Dalish Origin?
Long time ago I did.
Okay, do you remember, you find the ruins of Tamlin and you find this weird statue and Tamlin goes, oh, I think that was a statue of our gods. But it looks kind of weirdly human in a way. I think it was a Falandin. Do you remember that part?
Yes, I remember that part vaguely, yeah.
That statue is what I'm talking about specifically. That statue is also found in the Architect's Lair, and there's also another one. We're not going to talk about that one. We're talking about the one that's supposed to be a quote-unquote Falandin. Very, very recently, so this is like, 10 years past, so sometime in the past couple months, David Gator has been, he left BioWare and he's joined Summerfall Studios. They're making Chorus. I can't quite remember.
Yeah, I think so.
But they've been doing live streams of him and Liam Essler. I forget the guy's name. I'm sorry. Replaying Dragon Age Origins, doing like commentary of the development process of Dragon Age Origins. One of the things he mentioned is that originally, when concepted, the archdemon wasn't a dragon. It was kind of this. He described it as a Lovecraftian horror thing. And then when they realized that they were going to name a thing Dragon Age and had no dragons in it, they changed it to a dragon.
Fun.
But there was already a concept art of this weird Lovecraftian horror, and that's all he said. Well, meanwhile, on the Discord that I'm on, where we have a bunch of lore people together, we collectively lost our shits because we have been trying to figure out what the hell this stupid statue was. And when the statue just kind of is some weird thing, whatever. But when so there's a couple of guidebooks, specifically Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2, that for some reason has lore in it, but it was like a very special edition. You had to buy the specific print of it to have this weird lore in it. So I ended up finding it on eBay. And when I was looking through it, there was the actual concept art of that archdemon, and it was the same thing as the statue. So that weird Lovecraftian horror thing is that statue. Falandin's statue was at least originally supposed to be what the archdemon was going to look like in the game. So with all of that out of the way, now let's go back to, as I mentioned in the found files, that same head shape was found in Trespasser. So what we're kind of wondering is Moonhead and Beetle these weird archdemons? Are these old gods? Because they're weird, because as we saw in that one thing of Moonhead, and she's this weird giant slug lady, is this what the real old gods are supposed to be looking like? Are these weird Lovecraftian horror things with these strange heads? That's it.
Bravo. I'm not going to disagree with any of that. I'm going to say, yes, that's exactly what it is.
So there's a couple camps on the Discord that I'm on. of this is old gods versus this is elven gods versus they're both. I'm kind of torn on where I'm standing, to be quite honest, because I think there's a lot of good theories. Some have said that maybe one of these is Falundin, but it's not the same head shape. Some have said these are some of the other, like, could this be Gilinon and Elgranon, perhaps? Like, there's a whole bunch of things. I kind of thought that maybe there was a reason that Meredith and Corypheus were on the same side as a male and female figure, respectively. So, like, would the upside-down figures sort of have, like, the same sin or problem as Corypheus and Meredith has? So would this be Andruel, who was tainted by red lyrium, and, you know, just like Meredith? And then would the other one be Falundin, who we know wanted to be worshipped and like a god and whatever, and that ended up being his downfall. And those are those two people, because that kind of like mirrors it, and that would give a reason why you have Meredith and Corypheus in this mural under these two figures. Or could it be one of the Forgotten Ones? But then again, my only issue with one of these being the Forgotten Ones is that they have like little halos behind them, and historically in the Dragon Age universe, that meant some like it's holy or almost like a god. Not always, but historically that's what it's been. And why the Forgotten Ones are sort of similar in like godliness to the Dalish, I don't know if they are or that we're treated like that. And at the very least, we know that the BioWare book calls them evil gods. So I don't know. Are they old gods? Are they elven gods? I can't say. It might be both. We don't really know. So that is my explanation on this trailer. Very quickly, I'm going to do a whole video on it where we sit there and talk about it way too much. But that's kind of where my mind is and where we're thinking about it. So unfortunately, it's a lot of like imagery we've seen before, and like we kind of have an idea of where things piece together, but we don't quite know how it fits.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a lot, obviously, and also it does seem like it's dense, and like you said, it's stuff that we've seen before. I don't know, feels new to me. I probably just don't pay attention to it as much as other folks, but feels fucking new to me. And I gotta say, the image is, especially the one from the website, which is kind of easier to look at the details of it. It's so obviously deliberate in so many of its details. I'm so impressed by the fact that they do this, honestly.
Which, another thing about the mural that gets lost in translation from the website image to the trailer is that the blue eyes are shiny. It's the only thing that shines on this is the gold and the blue. Not the red of the red lyrium, but the gold and the blue. I don't really know why. And I don't know why this blue is so prominent. And there's, in all of these Solas murals, very little blue. Only like once or twice has there been this kind of color of blue. So I feel like it's significant and maybe even lyrium related, but I can't tell you why. I got no answers. So
very interesting indeed.
All right, so Jordan, why don't you tell me about Mass Effect?
Holy crap, Mass Effect. So I guess what happens in the trailer itself, I don't even know if I do feel like it's a lot less ultimately substantial than the Dragon Age. Well, not substantial, that's not the right word. It's mainly shots of space, and there are images in there like, ooh, I see that. But to me, it's more kind of like the voiceover and then the last shot. Kind of similar, kind of like what you said. It's like everything up until like the last, 10 seconds or few seconds, you could go, I mean, it's great, it's whatever. But it's those last 10 seconds where you go, holy shit, that changes everything. So I guess basically the trailer is, it is shots that look like they're in space, but it's clearly meant to be sort of like moments of significance, some of which is sort of like real life history and pre-Mass Effect 1 lore, if you want to call it that, and then into the events of the Mass Effect franchise sort of being played in these little audio snippets with different shots of like space, but sort of like an abstraction of these different events, from like the Reapers attacking to, the first contact war, things like that. And then it basically goes down into I don't think there's anything else. Yeah, it basically goes down into the shot on the planet, on a snowy planet with a ship in the background that is clearly the ship that we have seen in a couple of different pieces of concept art. The one that they first released on N7 Day when they announced the Mass Effect Trilogy remaster. And again, that same image of that spaceship landed is in the BioWare 25 book with the 3 figures that are sort of disembarking the ship on this planet. And then in the foreground, there is a character. Oh, I guess before that, it shows this one character sort of climbing up a mountain, sort of traipsing through the snow and the elements. And then it sort of goes to an over the shoulder of that character. They pick up something out of the ground, which looks like a piece of metal or something. And as they wipe it free of ice and snow, we see that it's an N7 emblem. And then when you're over the shoulder, it just sort of pulls back a little bit. They have a hood. In the background is that same ship and 3 characters that are walking around. And as they turn and sort of smile, it is an Asari. It is an Asari female. I think everyone has come to the consensus that it is definitely Liara.
It's Liara.
Some people were like, this looks like Liara. And my tweet was, it's definitely Liara.
Yeah. This is like is it Morrigan or Caribbean?
I have no doubt in my mind that it's Liara, but some people were like, well, we don't know. I'm like, well, I don't have any doubt.
No, I think that's pretty cut and dry Liara, to be quite
I don't think there's any chance it's not Liara. Also, even if you just don't think it looks like Liara, like, my God, it's clearly meant to be, like, from the music and the camera angle, you're clearly meant to recognize that character.
Yeah. I also, like, you can see, like, a Reaper in the background at one point, like a dead one, and, like, the in the background, it's like,
you can see a destroyed relay at one point. Also, you can see a destroyed mass relay. We also know that one of the other concept arts that was in the BioWare 25 book was what looks to be like a human built Reaper. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. A human built mass relay that we pointed out also has sort of like Cerberus colors, like a Cerberus color theme to it, which is, that shot of the destroyed relay that you see in the teaser trailer. I kind of took that to be more when the relays were destroyed at the end of Mass Effect 3, but it could also be something that indicates like a somewhat future state. In the extended cut ending of Mass Effect 3, there is the line that says that we rebuilt everything that was lost, or most of, or something to that effect. So everyone just kind of assumed that the relays did in fact get repaired after the events in the end of Mass Effect 3, but who knows? Maybe not all of them. Maybe it taken in combination with that concept art that we've seen, there were at least some relays that had to be rebuilt, like from scratch. Yeah. But yeah, I think, again, similar to the Dragon Age trailer, most of what you take away from it is the last 10 seconds when you see Liara.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you see the tweet? There was someone that says, like, oh, it looks like there's 2 galaxies merging or something like that. Am I getting hit?
No, you're going exactly the right area, yeah.
Okay, yeah, people were saying, like, oh, there's 2 galaxies here, and one of the devs, I don't remember who, says, yeah, that's intentional.
Yeah.
Maybe hinting that, like, this is Mass Effect 5. We're not forgetting about Andromeda.
Correct. Yeah, somebody else, I think it was Ash, actually, who showed, there was, like, a metadata on some image that said Mass Effect 5.
Yeah, you're right.
And people were like, yeah, I mean, I've always thought it was going to be Mass Effect 5. I don't think they were just going to ever forget about the fact that Andromeda existed. But I think that they're also, like, if we're going back to the Milky Way, well, so here's where it gets interesting, right? Like, some people saw Liara and they're like, okay, we're going back to the Milky Way. It's the old crew. It's going to be everybody back. And I'm like, well, let's think about this. In that close-up, it's definitely Liara. But if you look at it really closely, like, she has sort of like fine lines on her face. Like, we might be reading way too much into this, but she does look a little older. And that's important because Asari can live for 1,000 years. Matriarch Asari do look like they've aged. Like, they age very little. But if you look at sort of like maiden, matron, and matriarch stages of an Asari's life, like, you can tell by looking at them if they're a matron or a maiden or if they're a matriarch. I will say that some people have said, oh, this could be, Liara is 106 years old in the first Mass Effect. By Mass Effect 3, that makes her 107 or 108. So some people are like, this could be 900 years in the future. Like, I think if she was in the matriarch stage, especially because we know what Liara's mother looks like in the matriarch stage because she's in the first game, she doesn't look like a matriarch. I could buy matron. I could buy like she's 500 years old, 400 years old. But I do think she looks older, and even in the course of 50 years, she probably wouldn't look older.
Yeah. So this is a couple hundred years, but not like 900.
If I had to say so, yeah, I would say that it's a few hundred, not 900, not like 800, not anything like that.
Yeah. I feel like it would be like 500 because that's like a nice round number, you know?
Yeah, I think that's not a bad guess at all. Which also brings into question like other characters, because Rex could also be alive. Krogan also lived to be older than 1,000 years old. Drac is 1,400 years old in Andromeda, and there's some stuff in the lore that clearly says that like nobody really knows how old a Krogan can get, because they don't really tend to die. Like the vast majority of Krogan die from wounds. They don't die from like they have organ redundancy, number one. So like if they have heart failure, they have multiple of those.
Oh, Jordan, I just realized the bad news.
What's that?
PB's gonna be so alive.
Yeah, PB will, I mean, unless she is killed by misadventure.
Oh no.
She is always getting into a lot of trouble.
I mean, that's fair, yeah. But yeah, so I think the Krogan and the Asari are the only two like old ones, right? Like I think Turians last a while, and then like Solarians are like 50 years tops or
the
something.
Average lifespan for Solarians is 35.
Woo!
Yeah,
okay.
They tend to go quick. That increased metabolism, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So yeah, those would be the main ones. You also have potentially, I don't know how they would handle this, especially considering the end of Mass Effect 3, but you do have your synthetic characters. Who knows how long those Geth batteries last? Things like that.
Oh, see, my mind went to the ship. Yeah, Edie. Like, would she like? Well, would you? Okay, so it's like 500 years in the future. You chose the green ending or the blue ending, whatever. And then you meet Edie, and she's just kind of like an older computer. Maybe she looks a little bit roughed up around the edges, and she's wearing a really ratty Joker's hat. But Joker's long gone. But she has that hat.
I'm gonna go for something way more fucking screwball than that.
Okay,
Edie has a really cool body. She's the pilot of your ship. And they invented technology to digitize people's brains, and so Joker is the computer now. And he sits in a little box next to her making jokes, and they still fight like an old married couple.
Oh, that is so cute.
Because you should totally have Seth Green back. I just want him back, honestly.
Yeah, no, that would be great. It's a reversal, and now he's the
he
ship.
just has a bunch of jokes about how like he can't chase after you, slap you over the head when you make smart comments to him.
Oh man, or like maybe. Well, this is kind of getting too screwball now. Is when you have like he could like hit you with doors or something like that.
Just jokes from him about like, first I couldn't get you because my legs were brittle. Now I just don't have legs.
Oh, brain in a vat Joker with the hat on is great.
That would be fun.
Oh, man.
But yeah, no. As far as like, is it? I mean, look, I think it's Mass Effect 5. I think clearly like those two galaxies are. I think that's like right at the beginning, to be honest. If I remember correctly, yeah, it's right at the beginning. People could probably even do the analysis of like the shapes of the galaxy exactly. I mean, they're both spiral, but you could probably zoom in and do some of that. But let's just assume it's Andromeda and the Milky Way. I mean, that's the most obvious guess, considering those are the two settings of the Mass Effect branches that we have.
Well, I think it's also based in a little bit on science, because isn't like some far off time in the future, are the actual Milky Way and Andromeda galaxies are going to start colliding.
That is what they say, yeah. So as to the question of like, is this a sequel to both? That's what I've heard some people saying. It's like, I kind of do lean a little bit towards they're steering away from Andromeda more than they're steering towards it. It's not right down the center. Like, we're going to see, really a continuation of both storylines. It's like, we're going to see what's been happening in the Milky Way, and we're not going to forget about what's happened in Andromeda.
Yeah. Because I feel like Andromeda still has a bunch of questions to it. However, I don't think a lot of people, no offense, care. So they're going to have to figure out how to wrap that up for the minority that do care about in the Andromeda story. And then create whatever new stories in the Milky Way. And I feel like and also I feel like it would be kind of hard to do this because there is a fine line. Like, it's going to be really hard to make it not seem like them going to Andromeda was completely worthless, because then immediately the relays are fixed. You're like, oh, hey guys, everything's fine. Actually, we defeated the Reapers. You guys can go back now. They go, oh fuck, and they leave. So I feel like that's kind of an issue.
No, I think it is. Okay, so yeah, I mean, to that point of do people care about going back to Andromeda? I think some people do. I even saw maybe a couple of tweets that sort of indicated even slight disappointment that we're not getting an Andromeda sequel, quote unquote, like a direct sequel to Andromeda. I personally don't share that disappointment, but I do understand. I mean, some people quite liked the characters from Andromeda, and the original trilogy gang got a trilogy, even though some characters were only in, well, they were either, if they were not another, I'm thinking of some of the Mass Effect 2 characters, we still got to see them again in 3.
Yeah.
Pretty much all of those characters got at least a couple of games to be in, except for the ones that just came in 3. So I get it. If you're just a fan of that crew, you're like, man, we only got them for one game. Personally, I am curious also, but give us a novel or something. I wouldn't mind knowing what happens to Ryder sort of in a different medium.
Yeah.
If they did a comic series or a novel, I'd be thoroughly satisfied with that if we got to see a closure to some of those characters in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like this is me reading into it, but I feel like the game, because for some reason I was watching the original teaser for Andromeda where it had that Johnny Cash song, and it was very obviously the trailer for the game they wanted to make, not the game that ended up coming out. And I kind of got sad about it because their idea of the game sounded really neat, and I those characters probably had a really core idea that was really interesting, but it got cut down and warped in some direction, and we got the characters we got. So I almost want to feel like I could imagine the devs at BioWare, they worked really hard on the game that came out, but it isn't the game they necessarily wanted to make because they couldn't get stuff working and they just ran out of time and budget. So I imagine there's kind of a sense of disappointment there. And sure enough, the fans probably aren't helping because there's a lot of people rubbing salt into the wound. Yeah, so I kind of want to feel like they just say they lived a happy life at the end. They're just kind of all right, it's over. Anyway.
It's better to have a clean break, I think is what you're getting at.
Yeah.
It's better to just say look, that didn't work out. Let's just let it lie where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, people's reaction to Liara and to seeing, the N7 symbol, getting that hint of going back to the Milky Way, no matter what time frame it's in, and how hyped people were for that, I think is pretty much all the confirmation that most fans, kind of feel that way. One thing I did want to touch on is in that last 10 seconds, we do see the ship, we do see it landed, and we do see there's 3 characters in the background. And some people, we talked about this in the concept art piece, but it looks like, again, definitely a Solarian, maybe a Turian. Maybe some people are saying one of the characters looks kind of Angaran. I don't know if that's more of a stretch, but I do think it's interesting. If you do take that as an Angaran, that is one way to at least sort of acknowledge the Andromeda portion of it. If you also take the time scale into account, it's hey, in 400 or 500 years, would intergalactic travel be more common or common enough that someone from Andromeda, perhaps Angaran, would send an arc the other way?
Yeah, maybe. See, when I'm looking at it, I see human, Solarian, human, and Krogan. That's what I'm seeing. So maybe the big figure could be Angaran. I don't know. It doesn't look Angaran to me, but I don't know. To each their own.
Yeah, I mean those are it's too far away and they're too small for any of us to really be like definitive. That's why when people say, "Oh, I think it looks Angaran," I'm like, it's kind of small.
Yeah, like that could end up being like a Geth or something, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, okay, sure, whatever."
Yeah, and I will say in the concept art as well, it's a little bigger, but in the concept art, there's one that to me looks like a Drell.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. And with the one in the trailer, it's like, oh, and there's 4 people in the concept art. There's 3 people in the trailer. So I guess you could maybe infer that Liara is one of the 4 in the concept art. Mm-hmm. But be that as it may, the concept of so this is kind of the last thing that I'll say about that came to mind.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of the Angaran being in the Milky Way is very interesting to me, but it's more interesting because of the potential for intergalactic travel, but especially if the potential for intergalactic travel wasn't just like this multi-year go into cryostasis arc thing. It's like, again, if you talk about 500 years and an exponential rate of technology growth, I think that there's potential for a huge sort of like holy crap moment. Mm. I think a lot of games have done things like this recently where you think you have a sense of how big the game is, and then somewhere, not even early in the game, like somewhere halfway or 2/3 of the way through the game, I call it the riding into Mexico moment from Red Dead Redemption 1, mm-hmm. Where John Marston literally rides into Mexico, and you go, holy crap, the map is literally twice as big as I thought it was. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of games have tried to replicate that moment many times over. If Mass Effect had okay, you're going to travel to another galaxy and you're going to be able to move between Andromeda and the Milky Way galaxy as a matter of gameplay, like 2 separate maps, 2 separate galaxy maps with a bunch of different planets that you could land on in both, even though that's wildly ambitious.
Yeah.
If they did that, that might be the new greatest riding into Mexico moment that we've ever had, which is just like, even the possibility of that is incredibly exciting.
Maybe. I not to poo-poo on that. I just feel like sometimes these video game maps are getting too big. You know, I got shit to do. I can't be having... Like, I felt Andromeda wrong. Was a little bit overwhelming sometimes with how big the maps are. Which I think it also doesn't help when it's like the map is big, but there's also like the things you have to do aren't that interesting. So you're just like, I got a lot of chores today. I just got...
You get bogged at the side quest. You know, the quest log gets so full, it becomes like, oh my God, how am I going to manage this?
Yeah, and then how do you manage like what's worth it and what's like you pick it up and it says quest complete, 200 credits. Oh, thanks.
Right.
I needed that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on everything else except Mass Effect. I did everything in Andromeda, and Andromeda wasn't even, you know, it's not the best Mass Effect game, but I will take every drop of Mass Effect that I can get.
I understand. I have yet to say this about Dragon Age because you could walk into someone taking a shit and be like, but what's the deep lore of the poop? What did you eat? Let me look at it. No, that was weird. Caitie, what the fuck? I've been watching a lot of Hoarders recently, and I feel like that just seeped into my brain.
Yeah.
There's only so many times you have people like describing how they shit in cups and leave it around the house. So you're like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I'm watching weird things today.
Oh, man.
My poor kid. She's going to grow up watching Hoarders. I was playing with my little toys, and then Mom was just watching, you know, old women be sad about cockroaches.
Watching Hoarders and playing Dragon Age.
Honestly, yeah, and Cyberpunk now. So, like, that's going to be an event. Anyway, my kid's going to be the weirdest kid in preschool, let me tell you. Okay, Mass Effect. But yeah, I get you. We all have our things. I think for the diehards, literally any positive change, they're in for it, you know? So, yeah. I just hope that I feel like there's kind of a disappointment zeitgeist around not even the fans, but maybe it's me reading into it, but the devs are just kind of tired of us, you know, and like the shit we pull. So I really want these next 2 games to like just knock it out of the park. because I want I don't know, I kind of like want them to have a W, you know, like just a win. Maybe this is just me being sentimental and like, you know, you follow these people on Twitter and you see like they're like, oh, you know, today was hard, but today was fun, or whatever. And you feel the excitement they have, and then like it gets released and panned, and you're like, oh, that sucks, dude. So I do wish the best for these games. So yeah,
I completely agree with that, and also too, like I would even say like, and this is a weird one because you want to make sure there's a strong enough delineation between these two sentiments, but like I would almost say like a win for us. And when I say us, I mean the fans. To a certain extent, I do mean content creators, because I think we do a fairly decent job on this show in particular of trying to have a measure of objectivity, but also kind of copying to the fact that like we're not really objective commenters on these things. Like we really love these games a lot.
Yeah,
we're not calling balls and strikes. We're not like a review company that does reviews, doing them objectively or trying to like, this is a fan podcast. Like we really, really love this stuff and we're biased towards it. But it does feel a little bit sort of like being like the local paper, as far as like a sports analogy of like the national press versus the local press. Like the local press is like semi-objective. The local press always kind of like roots for the home team as much as they cover them. And I kind of feel like that's the vein that we're in, that a lot of BioWare content creators are in, is that we're semi-objective, but everybody kind of knows we're sort of biased in favor of the home team. And if your team sucks, and I'm not saying BioWare sucks, I'm just saying like if it ever gets to that point, everyone just, it's like, it just sucks. It's like, God damn it, how come our team doesn't win more? And so I kind of say like a win for us, like whether you're a fan of a struggling sports team or you're in the media covering it, you just go, God damn it, I want the team to fucking win, man.
Yeah. And all I'm thinking is of the Dallas Cowboys, because my dad loves that team.
Yeah. Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith fucking with his stupid shit. Can somebody please remind Stephen A. that the fucking Eagles suck too? Can somebody just maybe remind him, because he's from Philadelphia? Just maybe remind him that the Eagles suck too. Thank you.
Oh God. Well, I think that's all I wanted to talk about. What about you, Cerny?
I think that we've covered it all. Got not bad, an hour plus podcast, mainly about 2 teasers that were like maybe 3 minutes long combined.
And check out the video released later. Question mark? Sometime. I don't know. I'll get to it. Okay, well, with that, Jordan, where can they find you?
Folks can find me at The Exalted March on YouTube, Twitter, Reddit, and Instagram. Caitie, where can the folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter and YouTube as Ghildirthalen. For some reason, that reminded me of Keemstar, the way I worded that for some reason. I hate that guy. Anyway, with that,
with that, fuck Keemstar.
It's a ritual!